Hello everyone, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. Today we have a very special thing to check out, and that is the Onyx Boox Max 3. Now I've been waiting for a long time to actually get my hands on this puppy, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this review with you guys, especially after having had the opportunity to check in depth both the Note 2 and the Nova 2, which are basically the same family, but this guy, this is the big daddy-o of the whole trio there. Let's check that out, but before we do, I want to address one thing and make it perfectly clear for anyone who might be confused. When I started the transition to my deep guide and the channel of reviewing e-ink devices and all of these kinds of things, that I'm gonna have to establish a communication with the device producers or suppliers or something like that, somehow to get myself into the review circuit, so that I can actually start getting review devices on loan from the producers or whoever. I know that a bunch of you are now immediately going to associate review sample equals positive review. Not at all. Sponsored content equals positive review. When you get a device on loan, you are not obligated to make a positive review. It's your own discretion and it's your own editorial right what you're gonna do. One thing that can happen is that the producer who loaned your device, and if they don't like your review or they don't like how you treated their device, they are totally free to break that cooperation with you, which I think is totally fair. So I want you guys to know what to expect. What are my priorities? I've managed to establish a connection and a communication with the Onyx Boox company, which is fantastic. Max 3 is a direct result of that. It is a review device that I have received on loan with no obligations whatsoever. So I keep my editorial rights and I decide what I say and what I share with you guys. Onyx Boox can't do anything other than maybe decide, if they don't like my review, that they decide, we don't like you how you do these things and we're no longer going to lend the devices to you, which is totally fair. So I need you guys to know one thing. My priorities are objectivity and honesty, always number one. Now, if that objectivity and honesty is going to jeopardize a relationship with a certain provider or company, so be it. I will find ways. I'll start a Patreon and then you guys can actually help me buy a device and then do a proper review for you guys if we have to, or I'll try and save up on the side and then I'll buy a device. But I'm not interested in doing that other thing, because there's plenty of that and there's not that much of the honest side of things, and I'm sticking to that. So just so you guys know where my mind's at, what I'm planning to do and how I plan to do these things. Please keep that in mind, and if you still feel that you're like, oh, well, then comment out. That's totally fine. Maybe it'll make you feel better. Anywho, with that out of the way, let's dig in. Here is the Onyx Boox Max 3, and as you can see, it's a big and beautiful beast. So let's cover all of the categories one by one, and first we're gonna check out the design, the overall look and the design of it. It follows the same exact line of design as Note 2 and Nova 2, so there's no mistaking it, that it actually belongs to the same family. We have the same type of flush screen on top, rounded edges, beveled edges as well, and also at the bottom, singular button with the Boox logo on it. And like in Note 2, this back button also doubles as a fingerprint reader. On the top we have a power button, on the bottom we have a USB-C and the micro HDMI, and nothing on either of the sides of the device. On the back we have dual speakers, and everything else is a plastic cover of a lovely white with a very nice texture that leaves no fingerprints at all. Maybe it leaves fingerprints, but the white color itself lends itself very nicely, unlike the Note 2, which was very fingerprint smudgy happy. This one doesn't have that at all. Also, I feel like that the bevels here are a little bit less rounded, which is a very nice thing because it feels very good. It is a large tablet naturally because it's sporting a 13.3-inch e-ink display. However, it's incredibly thin. It's thinner than both Note 2 or the Nova 2. It's actually as thin as the new Poke 2 at 6.8 millimeters, and that feels really good. But the thing that actually strikes me the most as far as the overall design of it goes and how it handles is the weight. It's incredibly light for the size, and the balance, because it does not have a glass screen on top, this is a plastic screen on top, no glass, the balance is how you would expect it. At the back, where the huge battery pack is. It's not front heavy, and it lends itself to be very nicely used regardless of what the situation may be, and regardless of its size. It's actually far more easier to handle than its size would initially indicate. So I really like this. And yeah, let me just again put an accent that the front of the device is not glass, unlike Note 2 and Nova 2. This is a plastic surface, and that's something that I actually like. One more note that I want to address here is that you may see some air bubbles here. Since this is a review unit that I have received, previous user or users have applied unsuccessfully the screen protector, and unfortunately it's skewed to the side and there's air bubbles, and I'm not allowed to actually take it off and reapply it, so it needs to remain as it is. Hopefully it won't show much on the video, but I just want you to know that it's not a defect of the device or anything like that. It's simply the screen protector has been applied in a wrong way, which is something that I intend to address, and one of the future videos will address that, me applying a screen protector on my Nova 2. Step-by-step instructions so that you don't get these things, because there's no reason to end up with these, and it's not difficult if you have someone to help you do that. One other difference compared to the Note 2 and Nova 2 is of course the white color. Now we also have the Max 3 in black color, but I prefer the white color for a very simple ergonomic reason, which is your eyesight and the contrast. When you have a very large surface, or whatever the surface is, we are dealing with a black and white surface, which means that your writing surface is going to be whitish or brighter. And what you write and what you read on this surface does not have to fight and compete with the black frame around it. And as an end result, the comfort of reading on the Max 3 is much higher and more pleasant than on Note 2 and Nova 2. That's a simple fact that how our eyes work. They don't have to fight with the outlines of the shapes. They don't have to keep an eye out for the outline of the frame. Instead, we can just let the content simply emerge in the form of contrast towards our eyes. This is why I prefer the white color on reader devices. Overall, I think it's a really lovely design, and for all of these small things added up, I actually do prefer, out of all of the Note 2, Nova 2 and Max 3, I prefer the Max 3 design most. Even though they are very similar, all of these little things, I think Max 3 comes out on top when compared to all of the other ones. Build quality, like on the Nova, is exceptional, and there's no bends, there's no faults, there's no small imperfections around these fine details around the edges and everywhere else. Every seam is nicely placed, nicely put. All the jacks are very well set in and precise. They're not misaligned or anything like that. Overall quality, I think it's consistent with the Nova 2, so top marks there as well. Specification-wise, this is basically the same exact beast of a machine and a tablet as the Note 2. So the specs are virtually identical apart from the screen itself. So inside we have the same octa-core CPU with the 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage, and all the same capabilities. Dual speakers. Actually, this guy has dual microphones, it says in the specifications. Same Bluetooth 4.1, same Wi-Fi standard capabilities. All of the things are pretty much exactly the same. The only major difference is that the Max 3 is of course powered by this huge 13.3 e-ink display, and more on that when we cover the display itself. However, as far as the specifications go, exactly the same as the Note 2, which translates into a complete monster of a powerhouse tablet. You will not be lacking for power or storage or RAM or anything like that with this beast. And that's something to be expected at this price range and out of a product that's the top of the line. Now onto the screen, and there's a couple of things that I would like to mention. First of all, it's a 13.3 in e-ink display that's both touch and stylus responsive, so everything's there normal as you would expect it to. However, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Larger screen means larger resolution, so Max 3 is sporting 2200 by 1650 resolution, but that actually amounts to a lower pixel per inch ratio than the Note 2. So Nova 2, for example, has the densest image at 300 ppi. Note 2 then has the overall standard, the thing that we're used to, which is 227 pixels per inch, and Max 3 has the lowest pixel per inch density at 207. Now, some people may be sensitive to that, and I'm going to include like close-up shots so that you can personally judge for yourself if this is something that bothers you or not. I personally haven't been bothered by it at all, and I haven't noticed it in a normal daily use at all. Now, certainly, if I put my Nova 2 next to it and try to look at it literally through a magnifying glass, yes, I do see some differences, but through normal eyesight and normal use, everyday use, no, I really wasn't bothered by it, and I did not notice any problems regarding that. But it's certainly something that's worth noting for users to know. Second important thing to know is that there is no front light on the Max 3. Now, I know that I am in the minority here, but I actually love that fact that the device doesn't have a front light, because that means that it doesn't have the dreaded glass surface on top, which is almost like a necessary thing for front lights. First of all, the reason why I am gonna switch over to an e-ink display is battery life and health issues for my eyesight and sleep patterns. Now, any form of light, however good of a front light it is, it will affect your eyesight and your sleeping patterns. Orange light doesn't matter, it will affect to some degree. And that's one part of the equation. The second part of the equation, which is a much bigger deal for me, is the thickness of the glass and the necessity to have the glass on top in order to accommodate a good front light. Now, this is not a must, but this is certainly something that Onyx Boox is doing. All of their front light equipped devices have a glass front. Now, the glass front itself has to be of a certain thickness. Bigger the surface is, thicker it must be, so that the durability of the glass is up to specification, that it doesn't bend and crack. That's why, for example, the glass on the Nova 2 is thinner than on Note 2, because it is of a smaller format. Now, if we had like a glass surface on this one, not only would it be hugely heavy, but it would also need to be probably even thicker than on the Note 2, which means that the distance from the tip of your pen to the surface where you're writing on would be even higher. And fortunately, Getting rid of that front light gets rid of all of those potential problems, and the end result is, because it has a plastic surface on top, Max 3 has the lowest distance between the tip of the pen and the writing surface than either Nova 2 and Note 2, which directly reflects the writing experience. So that's something that I definitely prefer, but I know that I am in minority, and that probably a majority of people will say, hey, I want my front light, and that's fine, but to each his own. But then you need to understand that Max 3 is not a front lit device. It has no lights whatsoever, so that's something that you definitely have to keep in mind. Now the next one was a surprise for me, which was the display writing speed. And if you recall, in my previous Desta shootout video, where I pitted against each other Max 3, Nova 2, Remarkable and the Supernote A6, Max 3 came out as the biggest surprise. Why? Because it obliterated the Nova 2. Now, since they belong to the same family, I expected very same results, because the results between, or subjectively perceived results between Note 2 and the Nova 2 were roughly the same. But when I started writing on Max 3, it felt way quicker, and when I actually ran the tests, then the numbers confirmed it. And the Max 3 is almost as fast as the Supernote A6 and the Remarkable Gen 1 tablet, which is a huge plus, and I think a very important consideration to have. Whether or not that's due to a better panel overall for a 13.3 inch, or it's a combination of the better panel and the lack of the glass itself, I really don't know. But the end result is that we have dramatically better writing speed experience on the Max 3 than either Note 2 and Nova 2 as well. Excellent scores there as well. Unfortunately, due to a mix-up, I have received the unit without the original Max 3 stylus from the previous reviewer, and Onyx Boox then got in touch, and they sent out a package, supplemental package, that does contain the pen and other things that were missing from the package that I received. But unfortunately, there are some complications with that package, and it has been delayed. Now, I no longer can delay this review, so I can't really wait for the resolution of this ongoing thing with the original pen, so I don't have the original pen. I will be using the default Nova 2 pen that I have with the Remarkable nib, but from what the users say and what the marketing material also says and what other reviewers say, Max 3 pen should be far more superior than the default Nova 2. It should be made out of better materials, better weight, and better overall experience. Now, I haven't held it in my hand, so I don't know. So that one's going to remain a question mark in this review. It should be better, but having not seen it or held it or used it, I'm not going to make any assumptions. So that's going to be a question mark, or I'm going to eliminate this category from the review for now. And once I do, and if I do at some point get the Max 3 pen, I will test it, and in the online article review of the Max 3, I'll then update the results there. But for now, it's an unknown. Should be better, but I don't know. And when you fire it up, you will see that you're greeted with the same exact experience as on Note 2 and Nova 2, and that makes sense because Max 3 is also running the latest update from Onyx Boox, which is the update 2.3, which means that all of the goodies are there, including the awesome ability to actually dock your little tools such as the navigation ball itself. And you'll see that I've customized the navigation ball to include all of the functions that I like to use. Now, considering that I've covered all of this in my Nova 2 review in detail, and it's the exact same OS, exact same functionalities, in this review I'm just gonna go a little bit quicker and a little bit less into details over the whole thing, but it's still gonna be working as a overall tutorial. So most of the stuff, if you're looking for some really in-depth and super details regarding how something works and it's not covered here, you can definitely check out my Nova 2 review, and the same experience will be exactly there, just a smaller screen. So overall, this would be the home screen, and on the side we can choose between library, store, note, storage, apps option, which is our apps and Google Play Store, and of course the settings themselves. Anywhere else, like a global type of operation, is a swipe down, because this is an Android 9 device. So like any Android 9 device, swipe down and you will get your main shortcuts and the options to go back, home, and multitask or multi-app menus there. Then further on we have shortcuts for Wi-Fi, rotate, Bluetooth, normal mode, which is the screen modes as well, contrast, overall contrast of the device, and the ability to add or reorder and remove some of these shortcuts. The things that are quite important to note here is the rotate. So you are allowed to simply rotate the entire device or the entire interface of the device. And on a device of this scale, I think this is really cool. And the awesome thing is that it properly works. The way I like to use the rotate function is enter the rotate function, orient the device where I want it to, and find the corresponding letter T that's correctly oriented, press it, and it will simply orient where you want it to. Now let's go back to normal here and reorient. All right. The second thing that's again shared between Note 2 and Nova 2, but it's also present here, are the screen refresh modes. And we have the normal mode, which is incidentally the best for handwriting. The data testing, speed testing actually show that this is the fastest response time and the best response time you'll get on the Onyx Boox devices. It's the normal mode. Speed mode is slightly faster with very, very slight ghosting. I prefer to use the speed mode for reading, simply because the difference between normal and speed mode in reading and flipping pages is really, really significant. That's how I use it. A2 mode is extremely good for scrolling, so if you're browsing the internet, reading news, going through your emails or through Google Play Store, A2 mode is a really, really good way of going about these things. Speed mode is also okay, but the A2 mode is the thing that you would actually want to choose. The X mode is like the fastest mode, and I still haven't been able to find a proper use case scenario for it. So for me, normal mode writing, speed mode reading, A2 mode browsing, scrolling, and all sorts of things like that. One of the things that I would also like to mention is that in the navigation ball menu, if you go to the apps, navigation ball, and then you have these buttons that you can customize. One of the things that you can see here is that the button 8 is going to toggle between normal mode and A2 mode, and I find that extremely useful because as I said, I'm switching between most of these different modes, and then I can just simply switch to A2 mode, and then I have my browsing and reading, and then I just flip it back and then it works. So yeah, it saves you like one step of sliding and going here, but it's kind of nice and nifty that you can do that kind of thing here. On the top you have your notification icons and everything else normally, and you'll see this icon here. I've turned on the do not disturb mode because I don't like the notifications and all that kind of stuff. You can just go here, and in the sound options you have the do not disturb on a menu that you can turn on. And also, incidentally, like in any Android device, this is where you can adjust various different sound related and media related settings. In the library itself, we can sort by recent or time, or just simply normally arranged library itself. Then we can search the titles, we can add subfolders or sub-libraries, we can enter the multi-select option. So if you want to multi-select and perform some operations on several different documents, then you enter the multi-select mode, select the items that you want to use, and then you have these functions here such as move, delete, lock, unlock, and of course cancel. Long press will also give you additional options per item, where you can lock, unlock, rename, move, delete, and see where locally is the actual document stored. If you want to use a different type of a app, you can also choose the open with. Now, I'm just using the default built-in reader, but if you were to actually use a different reader, this is how you would actually set it as the default reader. You would just simply long press, go open with, select the app that you want, set as the default program, and from then on the set program will be your default reader program. And then in the additional options you have some more filtering, refreshing libraries, scan for book covers, library settings, and list modes, different list modes. So all standard stuff. Very similar type of functionalities you will have in the Note as well. So with the major difference being that you can switch between all notes and reading notes, and the reading notes are the notes that are made in the split view that are associated with the document. More on that a little bit later. You can also search, add subfolders, multi-select, and you have additional options here for syncing, filters and sorting, and some other settings. Now let's get into the reader portion of the review. Now Max 3 and all of the Onyx Boox devices actually support a huge array of formats, but I'll be focusing on PDFs and EPUBs. So I have an EPUB that I'll be checking out here and a little bit of different PDFs. And I'm going to go quickly through all the functionalities, what you can do, how it works, and what are the differences between the two. The reader is same functionalities as with the Nova 2 and Note 2. So I'm going to go very quickly through all of this. As I said, if you want to see details, please do check out the Nova 2 review that I've made. Generally speaking, you have several things to keep in mind. First is navigation. How can we navigate? Well, in order to swap to next page and previous page, you can tap on the left or right half of the screen. If you tap in the middle, you will get the options. You can also swipe left, you can swipe right, you can touch diagonals for a screenshot if you want to make a screenshot. On the top corner here you have the bookmark icon, and also you have these two. You will see that they're docked. This is my navigation ball that is docked, and this is the toolbar, the default toolbar, that is also docked. Here you can also switch between pages, which is very useful if you turn the touch off or palm rejection on. And we also have the ability to refresh. So if you press and hold in the middle, you will be able to undock this toolbar and you can place it wherever you want. It doesn't have to be docked, it can be wherever you want it to be. This is the minimize icon, and the Scribble tool is also a shortcut for the Scribble tools that you have, which are identical as shown. If you went into here, you would automatically go to the Scribble mode. So it's simply a very nice shortcut to the Scribble mode. In the Scribble mode, you have the zoom function, pen function, pen color. And in the brushes, we can choose pressure sensitive, pressure insensitive brush, line, triangles, circle and square shapes, line width, which is pretty much it. And then you have the pressure insensitive brush, same options, everything exactly the same. Similarly, you have options for the eraser, where it can work as a stroke eraser or erase the entire page. Then we have undo, redo. You can save the document with the notes and everything, the scribbles that you've made, or you can export it as the entire document as a new type of document with the scribbles and everything else. Now these are general and they will function exactly the same, whether it is an EPUB text file, PDF file, it doesn't matter. It's just all the same. So they are like on top of the reader itself. Alright, so that's the navigation out of the way. What we can do when we get into the options, we have the top bar and the bottom bar. The top bar is basically a couple of options. You can enter the dictionary, you can do a word search, you can turn off the scribbling. And if you turn off scribbling, then your pen behaves like your touch as well. So you're still able to highlight text if you wanted to. It's just this time with the pen and then it's actually a little bit more precise and it's easier to work with. So it's the same types of functionalities, but yeah, you can scribble. So depending on what your type of needs are, the option is definitely there. And I found myself actually using this more and more when I'm reading the documents, simply because I'm using Nova 2 and the screen is relatively small, and then it really is a big benefit to actually be able to do this on a super huge screen like this. I don't think that's a problem, but it's still a really nice thing to actually have and to know that you have it there. You also have the screen refresh option and additional settings, and in these settings you will be able to adjust many different things, one of which is the touch settings or the touch area settings, which is super awesome because you can actually customize the touch settings the way you want it to. You can choose from 6 presets, or you can make 3 additional your own custom presets which define where the next, previous and the settings areas for the touch are. You also have export settings, text to speech settings, and other things are also found in the upper menu here. Now in the lower menu you will always first be greeted with the progress. So we have table of content, progress, format, navigation, which is exclusive for the PDF, and we have split view and Scribble. It will always be defaulting to the progress because that makes sense, and you can just progress through the book really easily by simply dragging the progress slider where you want it to. Or you can actually just press on the page number and say I want to go to page number 5, and you will go to page number 5. These are basically between your chapters. So in this guy I have basically chapters per page, but you can see it here in at the beginning of the document. I have the table of contents here. So if I just press next, he will flip all the way to 16. Now this is really handy when you're reading books, because you can simply get to the chapter that you want and you go to the beginning or the end of the chapter. Very useful. In the progress menu we also have the option of reading.
For page 16 with Adobe Acrobat Reader, it is possible to use special navigation features like hyperlinks. This means that you can click with the mouse on a word or sentence and automatically get to the location indicated by the word, sentence. To better show what words or sentences are hyperlinked in this manual, these words are written in purple color.
Standard controls there, and you have the volume control as well. And when you go to the options here, if you want to load up the custom text-to-speech engines, you will be able to choose them and assign them from here. I think it works really well, especially if you're doing something else and you want the document to actually continue reading. It's something that's pretty cool. You also have the option of going to slideshow, which is super insane. Yes, somebody asked, like, you mean 2,000 total pages? No, I mean 20,000. So yeah, you can set it to auto flip pages for you up to 20,000 pages. That's quite a lot. I think that's sufficient. Then we have the overall page overview document, and you can sort between you can view the document with 4 or 9 pages or a single page if you wanted to, and you can just scroll like that and manage the document that way. And you can also, something that I find really useful, so for example, if I wanted to flip back and forth between page 130 and 23, these 2 buttons actually allow you to flip back and forth between 2 different pages within the document, which is quite useful. Then we have the table of contents, which works as you would expect it to, but as everything else on this super large format, it's so nice and it's so good to actually use. And of course you can expand it over the entire page, you can retract it, you can change the ordering of the content, and the sub-chapters are divided as you would expect them to be. The sensitivity is extremely good, and I find that the touch responsiveness and sensitivity is better than on the glass top devices, which is especially true pretty much for every device that I've always tried. When you don't have a thick glass surface, you have less refraction, and less refraction means more precision, so the device can actually understand your input much better. Then we have the bookmarks. So you can choose between your bookmarks, you can trash the bookmarks, you can rename the bookmarks if you wanted to, whoopsie daisy. You can rename the bookmarks if you wanted to, and yeah, you can do all sorts of different things. And then in the table of contents we also have the annotations and scribbles. So that's something that we're going to go back to once I start covering the annotations and the scribbles. Well, might as well do it now. So things that you can do within the document, of course you can navigate and do all that kind of stuff, but if you long press on a word, it will select the word. Now if it's a single word that's selected, it will automatically turn on the dictionary, and it will show you the meaning of the selected word using the dictionary that you have assigned. The dictionaries are modified and assigned and managed through the dictionary menus, or in the apps you can go to the dictionaries and go there. You can also speak the word, male and female voices, and you can also copy the word. You can turn it into a highlight, you can translate it, web search, you can read it, you can search the document for that word. This basically doubles as highlighting, and you can add it into the dictionary if it has not been added already. Then once the word is selected, you will see these two little handles on the side, and you can press on one of the handles and expand the selection or the highlight to include something more. Now as soon as you expand the selection, we're entering the highlight mode, and this is the highlight of a text, and the highlight can be changed to contain the black color or the gray color, and you can change the type of the highlight between the straight line, wavy line, dotted line, full text, or redaction. And the color of course reflects that as well. Well, one thing to note, you can also delete it, and then you can have the same functions as before to read the selection, copy the selection, blah 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 blah. One thing that's important to remember is that just because you made a certain type of highlight here doesn't mean that your next highlight has to be like that. You can actually have a highlight of this type and that color, and then a highlight of another type and another color totally differently. So let's say that I have these two highlights. If I don't want one of them, I can simply tap on it, tap on the delete, and it's gone. Let's say we add another one here, and you can see that it persists, it remembers which was the last setting that was used. Now highlights can be turned into annotations, and that's easily done. If you tap on the highlight that you want and you tap on the annotation button, I can type in that. I'm gonna update it, and you'll see that the cursor has changed here, but the indication is there. The three dotted lines that you saw in the table of contents. So if I go back to table of contents, this is the icon of an annotation, and you'll see that both highlights and the annotations will be shown here. So then I can just select it and it will take me there. Similarly, I can also just delete these guys any way I want, and the functionality of this is exactly the same on an EPUB or a PDF. It really doesn't matter. Now one final thing that I can do is I can also say I don't know, this is very important, right? And you can scribble these types of notes throughout the document. One thing that's really important to remember is that Onyx Boox devices offer you a large array of colors. Even though it's a black and white device, you can choose between, of course, the grayscale: black, dark gray, medium gray, light gray, white. But you can also make your notes in red, green, and blue. And while they will show black on the device itself, once the PDF is exported on a color display device, these notes will show in the chosen color. So that's a super awesome thing to have, and I wish more devices of this type had that functionality. I think that's a crucial one to actually have. For more details, again, check the Nova 2 overview, so to see the examples and all that kind of stuff. Once your scribbles have been added in the table of contents, you can also find them under scribbles, and it will list the pages where the scribbles have been made. You can tap it, you get to the page, and that's pretty much it. So awesome navigation all around and a really good way of dealing with these things. Then we have the format and navigation, and the format and navigation are the only ones that are different between the PDFs and EPUBs. We have a little bit more options on the PDF, so let's now switch to EPUB. There we go, relativity theory. So now it's remembering my old settings. So I'll just rotate. And the navigation and everything else is exactly the same as it would be on a PDF, so I'm not gonna bother you with that. But let's check out the formatting itself. So in an EPUB, we only have the format option, and formats we can choose between typeface, format, and spacing style. In typeface, we can of course adjust the font size. And this is not a small book by any means, but you can see how incredibly snappy and fast and responsive this beast of a device is. It's really impressive, and I'm just always impressed how quickly this guy does these things. It's absolutely amazing. Depending on the sizes of the documents, if you have like a document with a really small default font and you can go to a very small font size, then you may get the automatic division into several paragraphs, but that depends on the document itself. Typeface, you can choose between 232 fonts. However, the management of it is not the best, so it's a little bit tricky to find what you want and to navigate, so I don't really use it as much. So that's an area where some improvement could definitely be had, at least to have, for example, the search bar, so you can type and search the font that you want by the name or whatever it is. You have encoding options to ensure that your fonts are displayed correctly. And of course you have the option of using or not using indentation depending on the document as well. If the document is using indentation of the first paragraph, then it will show, but if it doesn't, then it will not show at all. Then we have formatting. So the formatting can be one page or a split page, so you can have it as a newspaper style as well, which on a large format like this really works. This is something that I love, really love, because combined with the lightness of the device, suddenly it transforms it into this really usable thing. I wouldn't expect a device of this size to be that comfortable to read, especially in this type of formatting option. And then you have the same orientation functionality, exactly the same as the device itself, so no need to cover that. Then we have the awesome controls, separate controls between image contrast and text contrast, and the ability to embolden the text if you wanted to. Then we have the spacing style, and you can adjust the line spacing. You can see that it's super responsive. Paragraph spacing, and you can adjust your margins so that you can have the type of formatting exactly as you want it to, so that it matches your comfort levels perfectly. So those are the formatting options that you have for an EPUB. Now let's go back to a PDF document here. And if I go back to a PDF document, now you have format and navigation. So let's go first into the format. Now in the format we have pagination, so first you can see just a page as a normal page, or you can switch to something that's kind of connected, which means that you can basically scroll between the pages. Now keep in mind that this is an extremely difficult and heavy document because these are unoptimized images, so it is going to be always a little bit harder on the device. But if I switch to A2 mode, then the sliding is a lot better and the ghosting is almost negligible. I mean, the ghosting is so negligible in the A2 mode that it can be considered as normal on some other devices. Let's go back to the speed mode. Speed mode is the one that I like. I mean, you can still scroll, but ideally speed mode is for quickly turning between pages. Then you have the format of having a 1-2 page or right orientation, right 1-2 page, depending on what type of document you have. But again, the important thing is that you still have the ability to use this really large format to basically have 2 pages at the same time. And if the ghosting is there and that you don't like it, you can always use the navigation ball, add a refresh shortcut there, refresh it, and presto, you're done. Then we have the orientation, again, same functionality as on the EPUBs. We have the zoom options. So pinch and zoom is something that you can definitely do. And depending on what type of document you have, it's going to be quicker or faster and what type of refresh mode you're in. And one of the things that's really cool is that once you actually zoom in, you can use one tap to switch between sub pages, which is kind of allowing you to navigate through the page within that zoom factor that you have. And once you reach the end of the page, then it will flip over to the next page, which is something that's really cool. However, even though it's a really good functionality, it's not something that I use something else, which I'm going to show you a little bit later. You also have the region zoom, where you can just kind of fit it to the way you want it to. You have the original crop and you have the crop to fit. So crop to fit is a really useful feature because it's super easy to actually just ensure that you get a fit that works with your document. And of course, at the end, we have the reset to default. So if you've messed your document up completely, you can just press this button and it resets to document defaults. Then we have the one that's dedicated to PDF documents, which is the navigation itself. So you can reset navigation to have everything as it is. And we have this comic mode and article mode, but these are basically just presets of the navigation mode. And what the navigation mode does is it divides your single page into sub-frames or sub-pages, and then your next page and previous page shortcuts navigate between these sub-frames, such as 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say that this is the one that I most commonly use, and then I can just go next page is 2, 3, 4. And once I reach the end of the document, then I go next page again in the same type of format, which is super useful, and it's really cool, and any imaginable combination is there. You can have the direction and the amount of sub-pages or sub-frames per page. They range from 1, which is nothing. Then you have the vertical columns, and you can switch between 1, 2, like left or right first. Then you have the vertical rows. We have the 4, 6 verticals and 9 subsections, and for each of them you can always choose a combination of going 1, 2, 3, 4, or right hand 1, 2, 3, 4, or vertical left 1, 2, 3, 4, or vertical right 1, 2, 3, 4. Any combination that you want will definitely be there. These are really awesome features, and this is something that I use pretty much all of the time, especially on the Nova 2, since it has a much smaller size, and when reading documents that are already small, that helps a lot. Finally, we have the split view, and the split view on the 13.3-inch mode of the Max 3 comes into its own, because if you don't know, we have the option to have the split mode, basically 2 independent readers running at the same time, but they're showing you different things. So you have the option of navigating independently the same document. So I have the same document on the left and the right, and I have the option of swapping these. If I wanted to, I can just go to the option and swap, and it just works as you would normally expect it to. And you can consider this like each section as a separate screen, so the shortcuts that you have set up, they work on each of these. It's basically a split screen, so as it says. You go out of the split screen menu by pressing the back button. You can switch between current document, and another document, and another document can be a PDF or an EPUB or any format. It doesn't have to be the same format. Current document and notes, which is awesome. I'm just going to do a short example here. So let's say I started doing this, and then I have my document here and a notebook open here. And you remember when I mentioned at the beginning of the overview that we have document notes? This is what I meant. So basically, when you are in a split mode on a document and you start creating a note, let's give it some horizontal lines, and yeah, let's start making some notes here. This will then be searchable, and this is automatically creating a separate note. And the functionality in this is exactly the same as if it were a separate notebook. So you are literally multitasking. You have a reader and a notebook running at the same time. So that's important to actually keep in mind that that definitely works. And of course, it's possible to save, export, screenshot, and do all of these things that you can normally do on a notebook itself. There is no difference whatsoever. And then finally, we have the split view and translate, and this works exactly the same as before. You can choose between the Baidu and Google Translator, you can choose between several different languages, and of course the navigation is between the translation itself. So the translation mimics only the page that you're currently at, and if you navigate in the document itself, you have the automatic translation happening here. One thing to note, you have to be online for the auto translator to work because it's using an online service. First of all, the notebook app itself is pretty much identical as on the Nova 2 and Note 2. So let's just cover all of these things so that you know what to expect. I'm not going to go into all of the tremendous details. If some of the things aren't fully covered in detail, you can definitely check out the Nova 2 note-taking experience and you'll see more details there. But since they're both running 2.3, as with the reader, it's all identical. But let's go through the basic functionalities. First and foremost, you are able to go to the full screen mode and back, with the important note here that when you are in full screen mode, your template actually scales up or scales down, which is a great thing because if I write something here, it will not get eaten up. It's something that actually is a problem in, for example, the Remarkable. In Remarkable, if I am in a full screen and I write something here, when I go to the menu, it would get covered by the menu itself. So this is a small positive, but a very important positive as far as the note-taking experience goes on the Onyx books. Then we have the page layout overview, where you have all the page related operations. We have our pressure sensitive and insensitive brush and the main geometric shapes, and also the control of the brush size. We also have different eraser options such as moving eraser, stroke eraser, area, and erase all, and also you can change the brush size of the moving eraser itself. The colors are identical as with the Scribble tool and with previously. You have the full grayscale layout that we talked about with 5 shades or 3 shades of gray, black, white, and most importantly red, green, and blue. So even though it is a black and white device with a display, you are able to write your notes or draw in red, green, and blue colors, and once your notebook is exported as a PDF or PNG and viewed on a color device, those notes or strokes that were written in these colors will reflect red, green, and blue. For more details and examples, check out the Nova 2 review as well. Then we also have, let me just write this here and let's make it, there we go, 3D. Then we have the lasso tool, which is a transform tool, which allows you to move the selection, rotate it, and scale if you want uniformly or non-uniformly. The things that you can't do is you cannot make a negative scale, so you can't mirror the image. That's the only thing that I think the scale tool or the transform tool is missing. But here at the top you can actually go copy, and now it's in the buffer. Once you are in the lasso tool, you can paste the same selection either on any other page of the same notebook or any other notebook, it doesn't matter. It's now in the memory buffer of the selection tool, so that's a very cool thing to have. You can also change the color of the selection. So let's say that you made some notes that you've written and then you want to highlight some of them in red, then you would just make a selection and then you can just convert them to a red color and presto, you're done. Then we have the zoom functionality. You can check out the detailed zoom functionality again in the Nova 2 review. Text box, same thing applies. Then we have the text recognition, which is absolutely phenomenal, and I have went again in great detail in Nova 2. So if you're interested in detail overviews or that, please check it out. but the functionality is exactly the same. That's why I'm not going into it, because there's no point in repeating the same thing over and over. Then we have our layouts, and you have the ability to switch between built-in layouts, your own local layouts that you would import as PNGs, or cloud-related layouts that are on the Onyx Boox cloud. And the black layout is super cool as well. Again, check out the Nova 2 review so that you can see what kind of sweet things you can do with that, because you can use a white brush and a black template, and some pretty cool things there as well. Then we have palm rejection and advanced functionalities on how it actually works. Again, this is quite an important one to cover, because it is a little bit different functionality once you actually turn it on. We have refresh of the page, add a new page, delete the current page, save the current notebook, or export it, share it, insert a picture. Once you insert a picture, you can manipulate it in the same exact way as you can with the selection tool. You can swap the toolbar between left and right, depending on how you want it, and you can also customize your toolbar and arrange the icons how you see fit, add, remove, or restore to defaults if you wanted to. Here you can rename your notepad, so you can just type on here and then rename your notepad however you want it to. So these icons here, you can sync to the cloud, you can undo, redo, you can go to the previous page, next page, and this guy here is particularly important because this search function allows you to actually search for your handwritten words. So for example, if I went here and said format, and now it is actually converting my text written pages, doing the text recognition, and there we go, it found the format. And it works in other languages as well. Again, all of this in more detail covered in the Nova 2. If you want all of the details, I do encourage you strongly to check that out. But all of the functionalities and all of the awesomeness of these things and all of the limitations are present on Max 3, which means no layers, no more advanced brushes or anything like that, completely identical functionality. Now, as for the actual writing experience, now that's where things are a little bit different. The main thing that is actually the biggest difference is the display writing speed. So, for example, here's my real-time example. So I'm not going to fill out the entire page, obviously, because that's going to be too much, but I just wanted an example here, a real-time example for those who are interested. As far as the writing experience itself goes, it is way, way better than Note 2 and Nova 2. And for me, it's three main reasons. Number one is, of course, the responsiveness of the screen. So as we've seen and as I've measured in my test, Max 3 screen is way, way closer to the Remarkable and the Super Note side of things than to the Note 2 and Nova 2. So much so that it's actually very, very visibly perceptible. The difference is very, very noticeable even to the naked eye, especially when writing. So it feels way more responsive and way more direct. Second reason, the absence of a glass display, which means that the distance between the tip of the pen and the writing surface is close to imperceptible. So it feels like you're writing on the surface of the paper, which is a huge advantage compared to the Note 2 and Nova 2. And finally, again, because of the absence of the glass as a surface that you're writing on, you don't have that inherent hardness of the surface that you're writing on and the glassiness, slideness of it. So it feels way better, it feels way softer and way more natural than either Note 2 and Nova 2. It's an excellent writing experience overall. As far as the real-life performance goes, it's as snappy and as responsive as both Note 2 and Nova 2, which of course makes perfect sense because it's powered by this humongous octa-core CPU and 4 GB of RAM, and it handles even hard documents like this one, which is basically every single page has at least 3-4 images, and they are not small resolution. It's actually able to deal with it very nicely. Again, I think that it's important to take into consideration the speed modes. As I mentioned before, for the reading, for me at least, on all of the Onyx Boox devices, I find the speed mode the best mode for reading, because it's just so snappy that it works very nicely. And one of the tests that I like to do is to see how well can it cope. So I usually take a harder document like this, and then I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I see, oh, okay, so I ended up at page 50, which is exactly 10 pages. So I didn't miss any of the swipes in those 10 swipes that I did. And now let's try 10 swipes back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're at page 40. So this is something that I think is very important when I'm testing these things, because not all devices are able to do this. Most of the devices are able to keep up with 1, 2, 3 pages, but when you're dealing with a harder document like this, swiping over 10 pages is going to introduce some weaknesses if there's in caching or memory management or memory capacity or anything like that. It will expose it, because in those 10 pages some of those things is gonna yield. And yeah, it basically tests out how the device is able to cope and how it does the data management, and this one does it very nicely. So pretty much exactly the same type of performance as Note 2 and Nova 2, which means excellent. As far as the customizability goes, I would refer to you yet again to the Nova 2 review, because that is an in-depth review and guide of the Onyx Boox 2.3 operating system. So if that's what you're interested, then you should definitely check that one out. Here it's running the same 2.3, and same benefits apply here as well, which means that the customizability is as excellent as on Note 2 and Nova 2. It's extremely easy to add your own dictionaries. You can add your own custom templates normally, no hacking involved or SSH or anything like that. You have normal access to your folder structure. If it's plugged into a computer via USB-C, it appears as a normal USB drive, and you can transfer files and folders normally, and it's just a properly organized environment, which is something that you would expect from an Android 9 device. So customizability on par with both Nova 2 and Note 2 devices. Now, in terms of extras, again, it has all of the super awesome benefits that you would get from Note 2 and Nova 2 that have already been covered. However, Max 3 has a couple of things up its sleeve as well. Now, at the bottom, it does have micro HDMI, which means that this device can directly be used also as an e-ink display, 13.3-inch display with any device, because you simply plug it in, start the monitor, app, and off you go. Now, these things I'm going to test out in a separate video where I'm going to be testing in depth USB OTG functionalities, Bluetooth connectivities, and the use of the Max Tree as an external display device. So I'm going to try and see what can we do, what can't we do, and what are the good workflows on how this awesome tablet can be used in other ways as well, so that we can explore the usability completely. Now, I can initially say that I have already started the testing, and yeah, it's quite something to be able to have a 13.3 e-ink tablet that doubles as a 13.3 e-ink display as well, that can hook up to pretty much any device that you have. Now that's quite something. So I'm gonna explore all of those options in a separate video, because I don't want to go into super epic lengths yet again, and I think it warrants a dedicated video for that. So the extras will be covered there. As I said, I purposefully didn't want to go completely bananas into the details of the review and guide, simply because it's the exact same platform as the Nova 2. And if you are interested, please first check the Nova 2 review, the chapters there that you are maybe interested in, before posting questions or complaining, why didn't you cover this? It's all covered, but it's in that other one. Note 2, Nova 2 and Max 3, they all run the exact same operating system, so the functionalities are exactly the same. Not similar, exactly the same. Now let's get back on to the focus of the Max 3 as a device. Let's first cover the cons. Well, first and right out the bat, I think one of the major cons that people are going to be stumbling upon is the lack of front light. And I think that's just simply the way it is. It's a 13.3 e-ink display, and I don't know of a single 13.3 display that is able to have a front light. That being said, this is going to be a negative for some people, and possibly I'm in the minority, but as I mentioned in the review, for me that's actually a positive, simply because the trade-off of having a front light versus having the improved writing experience, less distance contact between the writing tip and the writing surface, no glass hardness, no glass tipping over, adding weight, adding all of these things, fragility and all of that kind of stuff. You know what? I'm gonna take my clip-on light and natural lighting around the room any day of the year to trade off for all of these other things. So that's my view, but some people will just say, nope, front light or death, and that's fine as well. Then lack of front light is definitely going to be a con for you guys. Second one that's also potentially a con that didn't really bother me, and as I've shown in the images, it's really not that noticeable, but it is something that will definitely be of a concern for some people, is the pixel per inch density. So because of a larger display, yes, the display resolution is larger, but not enough. So we have a lowest pixel per inch density in compared to all of the three devices. Nova 2 densest, Note 2 227, Max 3 has 207 pixels per inch. What does that mean in real life? Well, that means that you may be able to see or perceive some of the smallest fonts a little bit more fuzzier. You will never be able to see actual pixels, but they might perceive as a little bit fuzzier. Now, I think this is a very individual type of thing, and I've met a lot of people who are objectively hypersensitive to it, and people who objectively couldn't even notice the difference between 72 and 300 pixels per inch. So there's a huge, kind of gradient of the sensitivity, and only you will know where you fall in that sensitivity gradient. If you think that you are one of those who is more sensitive to the pixel per inch density, then this is definitely something that you have to keep in mind. And I've provided the close-up images to try best kind of bring it forward to you so that you can see, this is okay, I can live with this, or no way, I can't really do this, I gotta do higher pixel per inch density, which I think is totally fair. This is objectively a con for some people. The sheer size of the device can also be perceived as a con, but to be perfectly honest, if you're purchasing a 13.3-inch tablet display and you're surprised that it's big, then you may have some other issues than the size of the device. But yes, it's something that you need to be actually aware of. That being said, the thickness or the thinness is very, very impressive on this device, and despite its large size, it's incredibly versatile and easy to use even in the hands in different types of positions and different types of situations, which is something that really surprised me. However, again, individual thing, it's not a problem for me at all, but it might be a problem for you, so it's something that you have to keep in mind. Finally, the price also needs to be taken into consideration, and it can be taken as a con just as a sheer amount, because this is a top tier product, and as such it starts, I think, on sales it's at $780 and then upwards to $850 or something like that, plus shipping, plus taxes and all that kind of stuff. You end up paying between $800-900 or maybe even more if you're really unlucky. But you should be looking at the range between $800 or $900 for a full package for Max 3. Now, that's a huge amount of money, and that may be a deterrent and a con for some people simply because it's not affordable. So it's simply a fact of life. 13.3 e-ink tablet devices are very expensive. That's the way it is. One other con is lack of included stand or mount of some sort. This is a large tablet, and it's meant to be also used as a e-ink display for other devices. And as such, I think that inclusion of a really cheap stand, like something like this, something that I've been using, this is like super cheap. I think it was $12 or $14 when I bought it a long time ago, a tablet holder, which is really cool. And I've been using that for Max 3. And work perfectly. I think inclusion of something like that would have been a very nice thing to complete the overall package. You are buying a premium product, you are paying a premium price. It's not something that would have cost a lot, but I think it would have improved the overall out-the-box experience. That being said, it's not a problem to actually go out and customize it to your own needs, which is totally fine. So this is a totally subjective con as well. Now for the pros, and the pros I could list on and on and on, and I'm gonna try and summarize the positive ones to the most impressive ones that I've experienced so far. First of all, for me, it has to be the writing experience and the writing display speed. I honestly did not expect it to be that much better and so much in a different category than the Note 2 and Nova 2. This is not something that's marginal or subjective. This is an objective and measurable thing, as you've seen in my desktop comparison review. This is a very big difference, so it's something that you will most definitely notice. The second huge pro is, again, the reader capabilities. The reader capabilities of the Onyx Boox 2.3 platform are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Now, when you couple that with this gigantic 13.3 e-ink display and you start using the split screen mode, that comes in its own light in a completely different way. And also some of the pagination modes and all that kind of stuff, you suddenly start using it in an even more different way, and then you even see like, oh my god, this thing has even more to offer. I mean, the reader itself has even more to offer than you might have realized on the smaller formats. So as such, I think that the Max 3 actually offers the most complete reader experience of the Onyx Boox series, and that's again something that I didn't expect, since they are running all the same thing. I was expecting the same thing, but yet again I was positively surprised there as well. Battery life is excellent, and this time I tried to run some tests. So what I did is I let it go for 60 minutes doing the slideshow or automatically switching pages, and then it went through 720 pages, so 5 seconds per page for 60 minutes, and it dropped by 1%. Theoretically, I guess that means that you could read continuously for 100 hours if you were flipping pages every 5 seconds. What it realistically means is that for 3 weeks that I've had it now, I didn't need to charge it. That's what that means, and I did use it. Now, also in the standby, like any other of the Onyx Boox devices, it does not use power at all. So if you leave it at 80%, it's gonna be 80% when you come back tomorrow or the day after. It doesn't matter. Where you leave it, it stays. One note though, for the battery life, as I always mention, I never use Wi-Fi constantly on. So I am in a process of devising a more consistent battery consumption testing methodology. I don't have it standardized yet. I'm still kind of putting the elements together, and that's gonna come up soon. Problem with these devices is that they have huge capacity and they last a long time. It's much easier with a phone, which just lasts like a day, and then it's easier to actually test that out. That's not the case with e-ink devices, so I'm trying to devise methods of extreme power usage and then normal power usage, and how I could maybe automate that. But then again, it's very difficult to actually pinpoint the methodology. So this is what I have to rely on for now. Another huge positive is the text recognition, and particularly the ability to search your handwritten notes by words. That in itself is just a complete game changer. And I think that other platforms really need to step up their game so that they can catch up to this, because that's a very, very important functionality that the Onyx Boox platform has, and Max 3 as well, like the other ones, has that same ability. What remains to be seen as far as the cons and pros go is the addendum that I'm going to do in the other video as well, when I'm going to be testing the PC screen connectivity and the USB OTG functionalities, flexibilities, how it works, power pass-through, and all of that kind of stuff. So this is the first part of the conclusion of cons and pros as far as the overall tablet goes, but more specific ones are going to come in that video as well. What's the overall conclusion? I think that Max 3 is absolutely the most impressive e-ink tablet that I've seen. There's no way around it. This thing is absolutely spectacular. Yes, it costs a lot. No, it doesn't have a front light. I personally don't care about that. It has all of the benefits of its younger brothers and sisters Note 2 and Nova 2 has, but it also has the benefits of better design, no glass cover, 13.3-inch display, HDMI out, and all of these kinds of things, which kind of elevate it into a class of its own. Unless you're looking for a drawing device that also needs tilt sensitivity and needs extensive brushes, this guy doesn't have that. Remarkable still is of course way ahead, because it has layers, better brushes, tilt sensitivity, and all of that. However, if that's not what you're looking for, if you're not looking for drawing and you're looking for a note-taking device, some sketching, reading, Android 9 functionality, integration with your Dropbox and other functionalities, it's an amazing device. As long as you're aware of the limitations that I've mentioned so far in the review, and none of these bother you, and this is something that you might end up actually using in your daily life as a daily driver, and it's something that you can afford, then I full-heartedly recommend it. I mean, it's an absolute knockout. Alright, I hope you liked the video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and see you next time when we're actually gonna dig a little bit deeper into some extra functionalities of the Max 3 before I have to return it. So that I think is going to be interesting to actually check out as well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you next time. Bye!